The Cold War was a very iconic time in U.S. history, especially through the 1950s. The Cold War had pitted Russian forces against U.S. forces in an indirect war. The Cold War is often regarded as a standoff between two powerhouse countries. It gets its nickname from the constant mindset that each country had to outdo each other. This was especially true with nuclear weapons, more specifically the H-bomb. The U.S. constructed the world's first hydrogen bomb on November 1st, 1952. There's a big controversy between the construction of such a deadly weapon. Many people thought the world wasn't ready to wield the power of the bomb, but the U.S. followed through anyway because it would have been a threat to any country that tried to harm the U.S. When Russia got word of the creation of the H-bomb, Russia wanted to get on the same level, so in the summer of 1953, Russia constructed the second ever H-bomb. As a result of the events of the H-bomb race, tensions as well as fear had grown higher in America and began to haunt domestic life.
After the possibility of bombings and nuclear fallout were announced to the public, there was constant hysteria and fear of nuclear attack. The government would regulate national bomb drills that would be announced over television or radio, and everyone had to be prepared. Fallout safety packets and pamphlets such as this one were distributed to many American homes, informing them about the possible nuclear attack. Civil defense fairs were also held in order to inform citizens how to prepare. It was clear at that point that this wasn't just a race between us and the Soviet Union, but average working Americans, teens, and even small children were both involved and affected. At home, families built bomb shelters to feel more secure. Children in school were taught bomb drills and shown videos about what to do. These precautions had very strong effects and for some created even more extreme fear and even caused some psychological damage for both children and adults. To combat fears of nuclear fallout, the FDA began to circulate ideas of building fallout shelters for families and individuals. In today's society, many argue that a nuclear fallout would look like this. Little do people know, society in the 1950s decade thought that the fallout would look like this, which is why they took the bomb shelters so seriously. They truly believed that it could be the difference between life or death. Nuclear shelters at the time of the Cold War were popping up everywhere, in schools, houses, and even workplaces. Here is a picture of a bomb shelter that is located in the house. Bomb shelters that were located around and even in the house took on various forms, such as the most common and cheapest design, the basement shelter. There were also underground shelters. This shelter was built from 4 feet to 8 feet underground. Scientists at this time believed that the ground would absorb the radioactive waves from the nuclear warfare. They suggested the shelter be constructed with cement blocks and lined with lead and other metals that would help deflect the nuclear radiation. Also that the insides of the shelter were stocked with beds, plenty of food and water, plenty of blankets, clothes to stay warm, and of course flashlights and lanterns. The further down the shelter was built in the ground, the better. But they were also much more expensive to build, and the cost was sometimes a stretch for struggling families only looking to protect themselves. In schools, it was mandatory that children knew what to do in case of an air raid or nuclear attack. The teachers handed out pamphlets telling the children where to go and how to position themselves when the drill alarm goes off. They were told to hide under desks or something hard to protect themselves. They were also taught to turn their back from windows and cover their head with their arms. There is also a famous video that was shown to children nationwide. It was called Duck and Cover, and it used cartoon animals and a catchy song to teach children what to do.
Dum dum, diddle dum dum, diddle dum dum, diddle dum dum. There was a turtle by the name of Bert, and Bert the turtle was very alert. When danger threatened him, he never got hurt. He knew just what to do.
As you can see, it begins with a cartoon turtle representing the United States citizens and also a monkey on a tree. The monkey represented the Soviet Union and was holding a stick of dynamite to represent the possible bombing attack. The turtle saw the dynamite before it exploded and got down and hid in its shell. This taught the kids to take duck and cover, as it would be effective in the case of a nuclear bomb or air raid. The video then goes on to explain what the bomb might look like, what the warning bell may sound like, and shows children correctly following the duck and cover drill at school.
Duck and cover. Don't wait. Duck away from the windows fast. The glass may break and fly through the air and cut you. Sundays, holidays, vacation time, we must be ready every day, all the time, to do the right thing if the atomic bomb explodes. Duck and cover. This family knows what to do.
Although many children did not quite understand these drills at the time, there were big ideas going through their heads. Some of them were probably so afraid of an attack that they felt they had to do the drills because their life depended on it. To others, wondering why they were doing the drills if the world was going to end anyway. Some of us used to leave their homework until the last minute. They figured there was no use in doing homework tonight if the world was going to be over by morning, said Anthony Bacino, author of Rambling Round. Even though the assumed intentions of the bomb drill at work and at school were supposed to make both children and adults feel safe, thinking that the drills and knowing what to do in case of crisis would protect them, some had psychologically damaging effects. Young children are not able to control their fear, and for the many duck and cover drills, it only increased that fear. All the while, we headed and assumed our position for the air raid. The air raid signal clanked and clanked, heightening our sense of emergency, said Anthony Bacino. Children would go to school every day, worrying if they would be able to see their parents again. Parents would go to work thinking the same thing about their children. Today's kids don't have any clue about the paralyzing fear that came along with these drills. I have known kids who had nightmares back then. For average Americans, this was a very real threat to their safety and security, and Americans had visions of death and destruction coming onto our soil, said Kathy H., who was 5 years old when she experienced these drills.
The Cold War implanted a huge impact on many parts of life during the 1950s. Everyone had different ideas of what was happening, but one thing's for sure. Everyone was terrified. Families began to build bomb shelters, and they quickly were seen everywhere in information pamphlets, and videos were also shown to nervous families. Children lost valuable learning time to practice duck and cover drills so often they could do it in their sleep. Sometimes these drills caused kids psychological problems as well. No matter how much we learn about the Cold War, we can never feel what went through a mother's head when she said goodbye to her child in the morning, frightened that just maybe it would be her last. All Americans were living under the threat of a nuclear attack, and it was evident in the domestic lifestyle of the 1950s.